They say some stories should never be told, buried deep in silence and fear. Welcome to the realm of nightmares. Welcome to Story from Shadow.
One day at school, I suddenly found myself talking to a girl in my class named Caroline. We talked for a while and took our social accounts from each other, but the next day it was the beginning of winter vacation, so I said okay, we won't see her again, but what happened is that we preferred to talk to each other a lot. On the phone, and we also talked on video, and there remained a stage between us that was almost a relationship, to the point that if I remained excited, I would go back to school to see her. The first time I saw Caroline again at school, I discovered that I deeply loved her. At that time I decided that I would tell her about my feelings. Fortunately, she also felt the same feelings. On my side, we went out together after school that day, but she told me that his father would be upset if I got involved with someone without first meeting him. I was honestly worried, but I agreed that I would go meet him, and when I left, the man turned out to be very normal and he agreed that we would be together. I was relieved when I felt that the relationship between me and him had started well after that. Caroline took me to her room and we sat talking, and the door was open. We were sitting talking and she was telling me about her childhood, but suddenly he was like this at our age. He entered the room without any introduction. It was clear to him that he was shocked when he saw me. I was jealous because I knew that Caroline did not have sisters and children, so I began to doubt that she might be in a relationship with someone else, but she quickly explained to me that this is Anthony, her cousin, who lives nearby and comes to them a lot without even asking permission. I asked him if he wanted to join us. He responded in a way that showed anger, and they said that he would leave us alone. The situation was strange, but while I was sitting next to Caroline, who remained my first lover, I quickly forgot everything, and from then on our relationship began to develop very quickly. We went out together almost every day, had lunch together at school, and almost never saw our friends. They were happy for me and encouraged me to know that she was in a relationship with a beautiful girl, but Caroline's friends were not like that at all. She told me that they were treating her like a monster and telling her that she was fake and not talking to her. Also, she received messages from strange numbers cursing her and saying very monstrous things to her. Z is a heartless and treacherous person. What they was saying was ugly. I told her that I could act and stop them, but she refused and asked me not to work with them. I agreed that I would be calm, but I was surprised how her friends could say such monstrous things to her. And this was not the end. Even though everything was going well, I couldn't ignore the feeling that we are being watched at school, as if everyone is looking at us from behind, talking from behind and spreading rumors. I loved her away from all this drama, so Caroline took us out to lunch together. We sat inside the restaurant next to the window, and we were waiting for food. He came, and he sent me another message from the same number, but this time it was not a normal insult, it was a death threat. I decided not to tell Caroline so she wouldn't get nervous. After about 10 minutes, she brought us food and we started eating. While I looked behind her, I saw a suspicious-looking person standing on a wheel in front of the restaurant and looking at us. He was wearing a hood covering his face, so I didn't know how to distinguish his features or whether he was looking at us or not, but I felt terrified. However, I didn't say anything to Caroline so as not to disturb her. After that, we went to watch a romantic movie at the cinema. We sat at the back of the row for some privacy, but before the movie starts, I noticed someone sitting alone in front of me, and it was strange because all the people in the cinema come with some world. It was dark and I couldn't see his features, but there was something about his appearance that was familiar. But Caroline was telling me that it was normal, and that it was normal that this happened, and that I didn't concentrate, and after the film ended, we decided to go and sit in Arabic in any public place. We rode the Arabian and we went to Janina for a year, and it was late and the world was empty. We drove the Arabian and sat talking about what happened all day, but suddenly someone began to slam on the car violently as if he were going to break it, and directed a strong searchlight at the Arabian and shouted at us to get out. I thought this was the police, and when I opened the door I found that the person standing was not a policeman. This was Anthony, Caroline's relative. He pulled me out of the car and started hitting me violently. I tried to defend myself without Caroline Gilly hurting him. We stopped and tried to guide him, but he was collapsed. He's screaming and screaming, saying I stole Caroline from him. And I understood everything. He was the one who was stalking us, and he was the one who was making threats because he loved Caroline. I tried to talk to him and calm him down, but before I could say a word, a knife came out and placed it on his neck. I ran to him quickly and knocked him to the ground and took the knife from his hand. He was resisting, but Caroline was able to stop him. I spoke to the police and they took him to something called a Baker Act, meaning he is not imprisoned in the traditional sense, but he is detained in a safe place. How many days until he's declared no danger to himself or others? After that, Anton was forced to transfer from school and live with someone from another family, and since then, everything has returned to normal. Almost Caroline and I are still together, and our relationship is strong and beautiful. But what happened still leaves a trace and still haunts us in our dreams at times. I will tell you a story that happened with my friend's unit. Her name is Nadia, and she lives alone in a room and prayer apartment on the ground floor. Nadia was moved to this apartment about a year ago, and the building itself was new and large. This story happened on Valentine's Day, which passed that day. Nadia was planning to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. As soon as I opened the door of my choice to go out, I found a heart like this drawn and stuck to the door. At first I thought the building department had put it down, like a welcome or something like that, especially since they really welcomed it when I lived in the new building. I didn't care to read it at the time. I removed it and put it on the marble in the kitchen so you could look at it. When she returned, Nadia came back from work, and the first time she opened the card and read it, she was shocked. The card had her name written on it in handwriting, and inside it were written strange words. You could be the most beautiful girl in the entire architecture. He said he will spend the next Valentine's Day with her. Nadia was very nervous, especially since she is still a new resident and doesn't know anyone in the building, nor has she even spoken to the neighbors more than just peace and altarka. It is clear that there is someone watching her. A few hours later, she was in the kitchen preparing more, and the kitchen was at the beginning of the apartment from inside next to the door. She was standing at the table and seeing the rest of her apartment, the living room and the balcony door. It was about 7 o'clock at night and the world was dark. She's standing at the marble. Suddenly I saw a man standing outside at the balcony door, and they were looking inside the apartment. Nadia got out and got down behind the marble. When she raised her head a little later, the man was gone. At that time, she began to suspect that this was the same person who sent her the card, but she has never seen it before. She began to wonder if he had looked at her like this before without her noticing. He could have seen her coming out of the garage in Arabic. But there are other apartments to consider. Honestly, the whole thing was terrifying. She was confused should she talk to the police or not, because she doesn't know how to describe it well. All she saw was a white man about 180 centimeters tall with dark hair, so she sent an email to the administration telling them what happened, but she herself did not know what they could do. Tonight, I returned to normal and closed the curtains well. At night she went to sleep. It was about 11 o'clock and I heard a strange sound, like the sound of someone trying to open the door. She was in her bedroom and she didn't hear a loud voice, but she opened her eyes and focused to hear. Then she heard a knock on the door and her heart sank with fear. Nadia was almost sure who was behind the door. She quickly grabbed her phone and was ready to call the police. She calmly walked towards the door with a magic eye, and when she saw it, she was sure that it was the same man who was standing at her window. I didn't investigate again. She called the police immediately and then went back to her room to continue the call with them. She explains to them what happens. About a minute later, the man knocked on the door again, and another minute later, he knocked a third time. The police were on the track and Nadia was claiming that they would arrive quickly. The man knocked again, but this time he was screaming and saying that he needed help. He asked loudly if there was someone in the house, and he asked for someone to open the door for him to help him. Nadia knew that this was just a trick on his part. He tried to beg her to open up to him, and then I was silent for a while. I thought he was walking, but no, he was still standing in front of the door waiting for the police to arrive. Finally, after some time, the officers spoke to the man and also spoke to Nadia. She was a little relieved that he had not died or disappeared. They would not arrest him, but the administration decided to expel him from the building and prevented him from returning again. They made an official decision that he would remain prohibited from entering, and from that night, Nadia did not see him again. But until now, every time you hear a knock on the door knocks solid. And every time you come back to love. Are you thinking about tonight? What could have happened then? I remember a good story I got with my classmates unit at school named Dream. She was in secondary school at the time and was a very ordinary girl, not famous or introverted. She had a group of good friends and she used to come to school and leave without problems. At that time she was not related to anyone. For her, Valentine's Day was just like any other day at our school. They were making the idea that anyone could buy a rose and send it to someone else, and the rose would reach the students during classes through the assistant teachers. The associated girls were waiting for a response from their friends, but Reem did not expect anything in the Spanish class, which is a rule that fulfills her duty. A student entered with a distribution committee and some roses with her. She began calling the girls' names and each one was taking her rose, and suddenly she called Reem's name. Reem was very surprised. She raised her hands and took the rose, not knowing who had sold it. One of her classmates asked her the rose from whom, and Reem said she didn't know. They started talking and thinking who could have sold her. Reem, she had light feelings for a boy on the football team and they talked to each other everywhere. She wished she was from him, but she wasn't sure because their relationship wasn't close enough today, except as she was trying to find out who sold the rose. I talked a little to her friends but no one had an answer. The last class was science. And when I finished, Reem went to the cupboard to get what she needed and left while she had the cupboard. I found a paper attached to it. I opened the paper and read what was written on it, and I saw that the rose that I sold had arrived for you. Oh Lord, be pleasing to you. The line was not arranged and unclear. It didn't help her. You know who wrote it? She looked around in the crowd but didn't see anyone suspicious. She took her things and went out to walk around the house like every day. She had not yet gotten her license, so she was walking from school to home because they were close to each other, and the journey did not take more than 1/4 hour walking on her leg, and she was walking on the same day. He stretched out behind her like this for no clear reason, and then she noticed that there was a boy walking behind her. From afar there was no sound of footsteps, but as if she felt his presence. This boy was from school, but Rima did not know his name. She had seen him before. He is very tall and his hair is curly yellow, but not in her batch. This caught her attention. It was a little far away, but he was approaching her while he was walking on the sidewalk, and it was strange that she saw him because she had not seen him before. As soon as she entered the corridor of her house, she looked at him and found him continuing to walk and approaching her. She was surprised because she had never seen him in her neighborhood and she did not know that he was living with her. I entered the house after I arrived. She left to finish her duties in her room. About a quarter of an hour later I heard someone banging on the door. But she was alone at home because her father was still at work. She went to the door, but when I arrived I found that the person who knocked on the door was not there. She looked around the door and did not find anyone. She returned to her room again and felt that there was something strange. After that her mother and father returned from work, and her mother came in to welcome her and told her that there was an envelope on the stairs in front of the door with her name written on it. Rima was shocked even more when she found the envelope in a letter from the same person who sent her the rose, and he sent her the paper on the cupboard at school. The message said he saw she had received the rose and the note and wanted to meet her at 7:30 in the morning. The next day in the back porch of the school she had a feeling that this was the person who was walking behind her to the house, and she felt that he was a stranger and that he was hiding himself. She decided to go meet him to say that she thanked him for the rose, but she was not interested and that there was no need for him to watch her again the next day. When I arrived at school at the time I usually would, she entered the back parking lot, which was very quiet, and there was only one car, and suddenly she saw a car door opening and the same person who was walking behind her came out. I knew him all along and he said to her, "Hey," and said that his name is Samar and that he was the one who sold her the rose. She told him that she knew because he was the one who followed him to the house. He replied and said that he did this because he wanted to give her the message. He told her that they had to talk inside his car, but she told him no, thank you. She needs to attend school. Then he told her that she should ride with him and that he knew she was having fun, and he offered to her that they would run away from the school and go somewhere else. She told him no, and she started walking, and she started running quickly, and she looked behind her. Suddenly she found him running behind her at his maximum speed, but she beat him and arrived at the school quickly. He stopped when he felt that if the students there continued, they would see them. A few days after what happened, he began to send her some messages on social media containing insults and bad words. She prevented him in every need. Afterwards, didn't you notice anything else? He was a senior and often skipped school. Regardless, it was her strangest Valentine's Day ever. The one who tells the story is named Lisa. She and her husband have been married for 20 years and they have 3 daughters. They were happy in their lives, but they started to feel bored. For a while they were thinking of trying something new, like going out on a double date or meeting new people. But the topic was ridiculous. For them, they were not able to take the step until Valentine's Day came. Some said, why don't we try something and that's it? They actually decided to look on Facebook for people to share the experience with, but they didn't want anyone to know, and the surprise is that they found the topic very easy, and there were many people and entire communities interested in the same idea. But the problem is that most of the people who saw them were frank in an annoying way, and their whole party was a strange atmosphere. They kept turning around until they met someone who clearly looked like them. Richard and Selena. Richard, the owner of a small software company, meant money, but they were respectful people and simple to talk to. They agreed on Valentine's Day dinner, and they said that even if they didn't know how to remain friends, it didn't matter. They left their eldest daughter sitting with her sisters and they went to the restaurant. As soon as they arrived, they found Richard and Selena sitting, but their appearance was completely different from the pictures. Richard had a large chin and a covered eyebrow half of his face, and Selena's face was covered from a lot of Botox and she looked a little terrifying though. They sat down and started talking normally, but Selena said something strange. I thought Lisa was worried. I asked them about the story of living in the neighborhood where they live. She said the neighborhood by name, so I was surprised and asked her, where did you know from? She told her that it was written on her Facebook. She shook her head, but she was sure she had never written like that, neither she nor her husband. After a while she entered the bathroom. Lisa entered the bathroom and opened her and her husband's Facebook as well to make sure that nothing other than the name of the city was written, but it had hundreds of neighborhoods. At that time, her heart fell to her legs. If Selena knew the name of the neighborhood, can you also know their address? How did you do this research on them? When she came out of the bathroom, Selena found herself waiting, trying to smile despite the Botox. She told her that she was clearly nervous. Then a small egg came out of her bag. She gives it away and makes it happy for this experience. I was shocked and immediately rejected the love, and she did not understand what this was. It is a return to pedagogy. She sent a message to her eldest daughter that they could come back now, but it was a rule that she began to feel that something was wrong, especially when she explained what her husband was doing. As he returned from sitting alone with Richard, the tension was clear on him, and I understood that his conversation with him was also strange. She attempted to explain their excuse and mentioned sending her daughter a message. However, her daughter didn't reply, leaving her worried. But Richard and Serena insisted on preferred and said, stay for dinner, then take your time. The problem was that the atmosphere was very suspicious, and these people began to look at them with strange looks as if they were planning something, and why her husband was like prey. The talk was healthy and the world was heavy, so they even forced them to ask for dessert in the end. After dinner they tried to persuade them to go with them to their house, but for her husband they were not able to, so they got up and walked while they were in Arabic. Her nuts. He told her that Richard offered him a strange gift that he would take. At that time Lisa was sure that these people were in serious danger and that their reputation was very poor, but the bigger problem was she was not able to calm down because her daughter still did not respond, and when I spoke to her she did not respond either. Then I started sending her incomprehensible messages. They are all symbols and confused words. That hour, her heart sank and her husband told him to hurry up in Arabic immediately. As soon as they arrived home, they had a nightmare of police cars and ambulances in front of them, and the door was broken. Liza ran inside screaming and turning around for her daughter, but all I found was officers shouting, and she did not understand a word of them. She was sure she had lost her daughters. until her husband grabbed her hands and took her out behind the door of El Ganena, and here I found her daughter standing with the police. They cried in terror. Her eldest daughter read to her and nursed her while she was crying and told her, "I'm sorry, Mama. I was going to let my friend come and I was alone at home." So she was shocked. But the girl continued and said that when the boy came and saw 2 black cars without windows standing in front of the house, he doubted them and informed her. At that time her sisters blamed her and ran to the room in El Ganena and hid there while he spoke to the police. The men who came down from Arabia were dressed in a suit on their face, and they broke down the door of the house thinking it was empty. But as soon as they knew that the police were coming, they ran away with the girls, but they did not find them, but so she was collapsed. She kept them in this danger. At that time, I knew that what happened that day was done to keep her and her husband away from the house. If they had taken this baby and left, Richard and Selena would not have been kidnapped. They would also have been kidnapped and reported to the police, but these people disappeared as if they did not exist at all. The only thing that was left was a credit card in Richard's name, and it turned out to be fake. She notes that he would use dinner time in a room that he had rented on the street. Either the company, they say, has illusions that it does not exist, and all of this has turned out to be a human trafficking gang. The police said that, and Lisa says that she doesn't know how to believe it. Because otherwise she must believe that there is a ghost who knows their address. To this day she can't believe how much. She and her husband were close to losing everything, their lives and the lives of their daughters. It was all a matter of moments.